Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Adelman. Welcome to Questions for Lawyers. Today, we have a very special show. There's a Florida bar election coming up in March, and it is my honor and privilege to welcome my friend Gary Lesser, who's running for Florida bar president-elect, to the show. Gary, welcome.
Thanks, and thanks for having me today. I appreciate it, Jeff.
Well, Gary, to those of the audience who aren't familiar with you, can you tell Florida bar members a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My grandfather had started our firm in 1927, and as a kid, I thought I'd work with Grandpa. But when you're a kid, you don't compute mortality. So I missed that opportunity, but went to go work with my dad, who was essentially semi-retired at the time, and I got to do door law for a while. In door law, of course, I was board certified in whatever comes in the door. I was able to ultimately build up a personal injury practice. And I think a couple things helped with that, being involved in the community with charities and making a difference in meeting people. And certainly in the beginning, getting very involved with my local bar, which was the Palm Beach County Bar.
Well, tell me at this juncture, Gary, what is compelling you to run for Florida bar president-elect?
Well, a couple of different things. So I did the Palm Beach County Bar and was chair of the professionalism committee. And then a mentor said, apply for a Florida bar committee. And I said, I don't know. I'm a West Palm Beach guy. I don't like to leave Palm Beach County. I was a younger lawyer, and it's so fortunate when younger lawyers have mentors. And I had a very good one. I'd like to see more of an emphasis on mentorship, to be quite honest. So I get appointed to the Professional Ethics Committee, and I end up chairing that committee. And after 22 years of Florida bar involvement, 10 years on the Board of Governors, and 3 years as legislation chair, I've done the legislative stuff and the ethics and the court rules. That's the number one thing that motivated me to run for Florida bar president-elect was the policy hat, but the other hat that the Florida bar wears is a service organization, to help our members. And we have this job to help our lawyers get involved and to help our lawyers with their daily practice of law. And that's where I think that the Florida bar can maybe do a little bit better job, especially in terms of interacting and communicating with its members as to how we can help our lawyer members literally every day.
Gary, can you talk about some of your plans, some of your ideas if you're fortunate enough to be elected Florida bar president-elect?
Yes, I can. And I want to focus on three particular areas. Number one is government lawyers. Government lawyers constitute a minimum of 15% of our total membership, depending on how you classify it, if you have a .org afterwards. The number is probably a little bit higher, frankly. And we need to have more government lawyers involved. We have a government lawyer spot on our Board of Governors. If you're a government lawyer, you attend, you don't have a vote, and we've seen different levels of participation. I'd like that to be a stronger, more active position with certain responsibilities, including communicating to our government lawyers section, including communicating with the government lawyers in Florida. Why create a platform and an opportunity if you can't really maximize that? And if the goal is to interact with and communicate and help government lawyers, that needs to be a more robust position, and it will be. The second thing has to do with our diversity and inclusion. A lot of people don't even realize that the Florida bar is a national leader in diversity and inclusion efforts. We have a large and very active committee that puts out tremendous work product. In fact, state bars across the country look to what we're doing, and we started 10 years ago. The problem is I think that we need to do a much better job of amplifying what we're doing. So that should be front and center of some of our messaging that the Florida bar does. We can do more than one thing at a time. We have 100,000 members and 3,000 plus committee appointments and 600 plus full-time Florida bar employees. And I think we can do, say, three things, front and center, every day, all day long. And one of them should be diversity and inclusion. And sending two types of messages, frankly. One of them is this, that everyone has the opportunity to be involved with the Florida bar at a committee level, at a leadership level, other things that we touch like JNCs. And that's regardless of your gender, the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, or any other consideration whatsoever. The second piece of that has to do, I think, with the education side. We can't change the way people act until we change the way that they think. And we have so many great programs, and they need to be pushed out front and center. Right now, the Young Lawyers Division, which is very strong, has something called YLD is me. And in fact, if you just type in hashtag YLD is me, you'll find the program. And what it's doing is pushing out YLD, Young Lawyers Division leaders, who don't look like the 58-year-old lawyer that you might envision. And you see how diverse our Florida Bar lawyer members are. And it's so important to get that message out there. And then finally, the third thing is the job that we do as a Florida Bar to help our lawyers with their daily practice. And, voting turnout is going down, Jeff, and it's a problem. And it's because a lot of lawyers feel like the Florida Bar doesn't do anything for them. And the fact of the matter is we have great resources and tools. We just don't push it out sufficiently. And I'd like to change our messaging, especially what we're saying. And we should be saying to our members, here are things that we're doing to help you practice law. Here's a tool or resource you can use right now. And we have these tools and resources, and we are doing these things to help lawyers be lawyers. But we need to let our members know and let them know, here's something you can use right now. And a great example of that is something called legalfuel.com. And it's really one of the best things I've seen the Florida Bar do. And I'm going to try to pull it up here. Let's see here. Well, that's not it. But perhaps we're going to get out of that. And we're going to try that one more time. There we are. So this is my website for my campaign. And I just aggregated the top 6 resources the Florida Bar has. These should all be in one place. Right now, you have to go to the Florida Bar website, go to resources, member benefits. You have to click through several times. No one's doing that. A, no one's doing that if you don't know these tools exist. And B, how hard are you going to look? So I'd like to see a centralized place, a website where our members can go to easily. This is something I created. So there's everything you need to know about COVID, Legal Fuel, the Florida Bar Lawyers Helpline. This is free mental health counseling, and it's totally confidential to a third-party company. The Henry Latimer Center for Professionalism, amazing tools. And not just to be more professional, which should always be our goal, but tools to help with the daily practice of law. All of our CLEs. And finally, something called Lawyers Advising Lawyers. This was a great idea that also came through the Young Lawyers Division that the Big Bar helped push out. Let's say you're a third-year lawyer and you're doing a real estate deal and some complicated issue comes up, a tax issue. Well, you can go be partnered off with a more experienced lawyer who can help you. But again, all these tools and resources are of no help if we don't let our lawyer members know they exist and deliver it right to them. Let's make it easy. We want to make it easy to access these services. And Legal Fuel, for example, Jeff, about 60% of our members are solo practitioners or small firm lawyers. And we have to really focus our efforts there. Big firms have infrastructure. They have chief technology information officers. So you can start a law firm and everything you need is right there. And I mean everything. It goes as deep and as sophisticated as you want to go. If you have a practice, this is how you can manage your practice. I go there all the time. The resources are exceptional. Help with technology. You want to know about what artificial intelligence is out there for legal research? I'm not there yet, but the resources are there. Cybersecurity, e-discovery, helping you with your social media. It's amazing. Like I said, it's one of the best things I've ever seen the Florida Bar do, but we need to let our Florida Bar members know, here's how we can help you today. Be a lawyer. And I think that we would see much greater participation with the Florida Bar if they knew that, in fact, we can help you every day be a lawyer.
It sounds like what you're saying is that some of these programs are there, but the communication could be a little bit better, getting the word out to the members.
Yeah, and it's not that the Florida Bar doesn't try. They have a very robust social media, Facebook, Twitter. I'm not really on Twitter, but I check out the Florida Bar's Twitter. Great content. They send emails. And I think we just have to make sure that we're giving an easy, substantive email. If you get 6 or 8 emails from the Florida Bar, how do you know which one to look at? How do you know which one will be most important? One of the things that we started doing a little while ago was these emails with lawyer news. Very helpful. That's the approach we have to take. Here's an email with some tools that can help you practice law right now today, maybe every Wednesday. And again, a consolidated website where these resources all exist and letting our members know in a simple, easy email. That's where you go.
Yeah, that would certainly help. I know that for me personally, I know with your practice as well, there haven't been any trials really to speak of for almost a year. What do you feel that the Florida Bar can do to work with the judiciary to see if we can get trials in some capacity up and running? Because even though we have hope with the vaccine and everything else, it doesn't appear that there's going to be a flick of a switch next month or April to get the backlog of cases going. So I guess my question really is, what can the Florida Bar do to help the judiciary, the Florida Supreme Court, to deal with this very serious issue?
It's a great question. It's a serious concern. Right now, the backlog of cases. 3 weeks ago, it was over 600,000 cases, which is astronomical. And they believe it will be over 1 million before we're starting to turn this aircraft carrier around. That's a real big problem. I want to give kudos to the Florida Supreme Court, in particular Chief Justice Kennedy, who has been a tremendous leader on these issues based on reason, science, communication, and collaboration. So he's tried to let our chief judges in each circuit kind of find their own way, because we know that each circuit is affected differently by COVID. Some circuits, we're not going to have live jury trials as we know them for a long time. Some of them are already almost back to near normal, and then everything in between. The Chief Justice Kennedy has said, try social distancing trials, try Zoom trials with mixed success. But we're not going to get through this backlog until we get through the backlog. The bad news is that cases that are in civil are going to have to wait. We have a massive backlog of criminal cases. And as much as a personal injury lawyer would like to have their client get their day in court, as much as an employment law attorney would like to have their client have their day in court, be it the employer or the employee, when people are deprived of their liberty and freedom, that's going to have to go in the front seat first. And there are plans and discussions to really try to rocket those cases, to have a whole bunch of new criminal judges. Everyone's going to become a criminal law judge for a little while. And that will get the priority. But these are all the steps that make things happen. On a Florida Bar side, I want to give kudos to Governor Jay Kim from Broward County, who's chairing our board technology committee and working closely with the court to come up with a few things that will help. Number one is uniformity. Being able to go to a hearing in Broward County or Duval County and have a similar experience will be very helpful. I think we're also in discussions with Zoom, and in so many words, Zoom, you're dominating the market. You want to keep dominating the lawyer market. We need some help and considerations from you. And to the degree that we're going to stay virtual for a while, then we need to have a uniform, easier experience. It was definitely clunky for us in the beginning. And the Florida Bar has taken a great lead in working with the courts. So I think, especially on the hearing side, uniform motion calendar, I think, has been a strong statement of support by chief judges to keep those, frankly, virtual. Or we all can go drive for 30 minutes or an hour, wait, get our 5 minutes. It's inefficient. And one of the missions, of course, is the efficient administration of justice. So that's an area where the bar has been working hard and working with the court. I think our hearings will continue to be smoother, and more uniform. And it will also translate into the trial world, because we're going to have to do more Zoom trials until we can really get going like we used to, which will be a little bit later this year, I think.
Well, let's hope,
Yeah.
because as they say, justice delayed is justice denied, and it's been delayed for quite a bit, understandably. But at some point, somebody's going to have to be a little creative. And I know we're doing that, but we do have a long way to go for sure with that.
I think when we really fine tune some of our virtual experiences we're working on, we'll be able to have more successful Zoom trials just to cut down on the backlog. I mean, the first virtual trial was in Texas, and it only was reported, if you're reading these things, and they lost one of their jurors, turned off his video, turned off his volume, and he was a little bored. He was hungry, and he left. Of course, you couldn't do that as a real juror. Thankfully, and kudos to the lawyers involved, no one made a motion for mistrial. And he got a stern lecture and was told how contempt can work, and they were able to finish that trial. We've learned a lot. I think, especially in terms of virtual and Zoom trials, we're going to be better and more uniform, and that will help us make sure our clients can get their day in court.
I agree, totally. Now, I noticed one of your platforms is increase access to justice for Floridians. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So access to justice is one of those terms that people use, and sometimes it means different things to different people. And so when someone says they're in favor of access to justice, they could be talking about two very different things. To me, I break this down into two parts. Number one, the Access to Justice Commission, right by the Florida Supreme Court, commissioned a poll a few years ago. And 80% of those surveyed said they don't hire a lawyer because they think they can't afford one. Not that they can't, but they think they can't. And that's a disaster for two reasons. Reason number one, we know as lawyers that many of our clients have their only exposure or limited exposure to the rule of law and how things are supposed to work when they hire a lawyer. So now we know that 80% have no idea what the rule of law means, no idea or conception what the justice system really means. And that's a civics education failure that happens when people hire lawyers. The second part of that, of course, is the disaster that occurs for the 80% that don't hire lawyers, who go take the Office Depot form and do their own will, right? Because they're going to save money. And then the will was terrible and they die, live in a $120,000 condo that they have to go through probate with a bad will. They've got to sell that condo to pay for the legal expenses. It's not what they wanted. You know, similar example of someone who decides to not hire a family law attorney. And you don't know what you don't know. So they go it on their own and they lose out terribly, either on child support or visitation or both. I think the Florida Bar has an obligation and an opportunity to do more of a public education program to let the general public know the benefits of hiring a lawyer versus not. And if it sounds like it's a radical idea, it's not in two ways. Because number one, years ago, Florida Lawyers Title did a program, but they didn't have the bandwidth the Florida Bar obviously has. The Florida Bar has done many public education programs, most notably the Votes in Your Court. So we've educated the public about retention elections for our appellate and Florida Supreme Court. We've done public education efforts for the Constitutional Review Committee. We have the tools, the personnel, and the infrastructure. We can do this. That will help lawyers get business, and it will help clients be properly served. The second part of that is what we call civil legal assistance or civil legal aid. And this has to do with the segment of our population that is very underserved. And if they can't get a legal aid or legal society lawyer, they don't have a lawyer. They meet the income requirements or close to it. So what can we do there? There's two things. Number one, every year there's a bill for civil legal aid. It's $1 million, it's $3 million. Sometimes we get it passed by both houses, sometimes we don't. And when we do, it's been vetoed every time. And I'd like to see the Florida Bar put its full weight behind those efforts. There are significant studies that show the massive economic impact. It's a great investment. If you spend $1 million and let those money flow to different agencies throughout the state and make someone be able to get or keep a job, make sure someone doesn't get wrongfully evicted and then lose their job, the economic impact is tenfold. And we're helping people, which is what we're supposed to do. And the second part is, of course, the Florida Bar Foundation. The Florida Bar Foundation was also created by the Florida Supreme Court and directly funds legal aid society, legal services organizations, and their great programs. And we should have a strong and robust Florida Bar Foundation. And again, we need to let our members know. Sometimes, any organization, Jeff, we do a little inside baseball. We don't mean to do it. We're working hard. We're talking. We're coming up with good plans and policy. We need to really make sure we're informing our lawyer members about these efforts and how it impacts them. Right now, the Florida Bar Foundation is trying to roll out this program where they encourage every lawyer to have one pro bono case. There are some pro bono heroes. They were recognized at the Florida Supreme Court a week ago who saved lives and do amazing work. Imagine what would happen if every lawyer did one pro bono case. So we need to let our lawyer members know about these opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because the public has a certain perception, unfortunately, of lawyers in general. And I know most of the lawyers I know do not fall into that category. And they are very generous people. And, I know I take calls. I'm sure you take calls all the time, have nothing to do with what your area of practice, but you do it because you're an officer of the court and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And it's sort of fulfilling to do, right? You take the call and you get them to the right divorce lawyer or the right probate lawyer, or maybe you just give them the answer, the resource they need.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Well, I want to talk about something else in here that really relates to not just lawyers, but everybody, the public discourse and the disintegration of civility, at least in the public square. What obligation do lawyers have to try and improve that? And what are your ideas to do that?
So that's a really great question. And one of the best answers is actually the Henry Latimer Center of Professionalism. There's an old saying in the world of professionalism, and it's a world I've been in for a while, that if you strive to be a better lawyer, you end up being a better person, a better husband, a better father. So a couple of different things. Number one, this gets to resources. And Henry Latimer Center of Professionalism has all of these tools. And we need to get them to our members. They're very active on social media. A friend of mine named Adam Rabin, who's a lawyer in West Palm Beach, was president of the Palm Beach County Bar. And Adam had this great program. He got a couple of awards for it. It was called Got Civility, like got milk. Mm-hmm. Raising awareness is a huge first step. So we don't end up just preaching to the converted. Oh, I like professionalism. Oh, so do I. Oh, that's great. We're all professional. But what are we doing about that? Because I think the bar has a unique role. And we actually have a professionalism creed, which calls on us to essentially be our best selves in the courtroom and at all times. And I think that we need to get those messaging out. One of the ways that we can do that, and one of the things I'd like to see the Florida Bar do going forward, is more cooperation and more collaboration with our voluntary bars. We have resources we can give right to them and let them push it out directly. We can work directly with them and empower them. And sometimes we can take what they're doing and amplify it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to get this message out maybe better to more lawyers directly.
Gary, I'm just going on your campaign website, GarySLesser.com, and I just want to share the screen here so people can see. You, over your career, you've established so many relationships. I'm looking here at all the past presidents of the Florida Bar that are endorsing you, current and former members of the Florida Bar Board of Governors. The relationships that you have here from all of these different individuals, voluntary bar association, past and present presidents, a BOTA. Tell me what that means to you, and tell me how that would help you as president-elect of the Florida Bar.
So there's a couple different parts of that. Number one, I've been involved for a long time, and that's enabled me to meet people and know people. And I'm a very relationship-driven person, Jeff. Some people are more transactional, and they approach everything. What can I get out of you? What can I get out of this situation? I've never been that way. And that gets back to helping the client who's not really our client that you and I were talking about. So over the years, I've developed some good relationships, some good friendships. And we passed 700 endorsements last week I couldn't believe that, because my goal was to get to 500. It's good to set goals. And some of that is because of relationships that I've built. Some of that is because of people that I've been meeting on the virtual campaign trail. And having these relationships has been helpful, because I've learned more in the last 6 months than I knew in the 22 years of Florida Bar involvement in many ways. But there's another piece to it. I'm so appreciative of the endorsements and the support, but I've been talking to lawyers all over Florida. The solo practitioner in Pensacola who has no Florida Bar involvement and wonders why I'm taking the time to talk to him. And the answer is pretty simple. If you're the president-elect and then the president of the Florida Bar, you're the president-elect and the president of the Florida Bar for every Florida lawyer. The one who's at the big firm and the one who's in the solo practitioner and everyone in between. I think my years of involvement have led to these relationships that will help me hopefully do a good and effective job should I get elected. And the things that I've learned have been so helpful. And I'll tell you one of them. In Palm Beach County, we started a program called the Diversity Internship Program. Diversity and inclusion is one of my major platforms, as we were talking about. Something the Florida Bar needs to be doing day and night, 24/7 when we're messaging and when we're working. At the Palm Beach County level, I don't even remember how many years ago, I was on the committee that started this with a pretty simple idea. We wanted to corral some law firms, get them to agree to hire a summer law clerk, a diverse law school student. We were aware of two things. Number one, the shrinking job market. If you can't get a job in law school, it's really hard to get one afterwards. Number two, there are challenges that diverse law school students face because of implicit bias, a term we didn't use 20 years ago, but now we know is very real and very strong, and we must be better people and overcome that and hire the best person. So we launched this program a number of years ago, and I've hired a diverse law school student every year, and it's been amazingly helpful. And almost said kids, they're not kids, and they're certainly not kids anymore. These diverse law school students have become diverse lawyers. They all have jobs and they're doing great. What I learned is we're the only circuit that has a program like this. I just assumed that others were doing this. And I've talked to some lawyer leader friends of mine in Broward and talked to some lawyer leader friends of mine in Pinellas. And they're like, connect me to the people that are doing this. We want to do this. And this is a unique role and opportunity that I think the Florida Bar should also be playing. What are the best resources? What are the best practices that are helping lawyers in Florida, that are helping our law school students? We're not going to have a good diverse membership if we don't have diverse law school students who have the opportunities. And this is my attitude going forward, Jeff, should I get elected, that you have to use these resources. You have to communicate and collaborate with lawyer leaders, voluntary bars. And I think that will help us be more successful.
Well, Gary, we've covered a lot of ground, but there's one area that I think, given what you've said about your campaign and really wanting to make the bar a resource for the membership, for the lawyers, just like the entire population right now, we're kind of having a mental health crisis. Lawyers are no exception to that. And I know that the Florida Bar has taken tremendous steps over the past few years to increase awareness and to try and be there for their members with programs. What type of ideas do you have to try and help members of the Florida Bar that really are struggling right now?
So this gets back to we should be doing 3 things at a time. We've been doing 1 thing at a time. And before COVID, our thing was mental health. And I give kudos to President Dory Foster Morales and former President Michael Heiger for putting these efforts front and center where they remain. Before COVID, we had serious mental health challenges for Florida lawyers. And the challenge wasn't just how bad it can be. Our numbers for depression, alcoholism, stress are off the charts, a multiple of the numbers for the general population. And we know being a lawyer is stressful. If you're a solo practitioner running your own firm, or you're working at a firm trying to get your hours in and trying to get home, it's hard to be a lawyer. That's why the Florida bar needs to make it a little easier. We have the mental health counseling, which I really encourage people to avail themselves of. It's free. The first several sessions, it's confidential. One of the things that the Florida bar has done is we've raised awareness. And this gets back to the Young Lawyers Division, who launched something called Stress-Free Wild Day. It's another hashtag. And what they did is they got lawyer leaders of all ages and stages to talk about their own personal mental health challenges. We have a leader on our board of governors who was essentially not allowed to practice law in another state, who had great personal challenges and turned his entire life around, and is a major leader from his circuit. But he's talked about it and how important it is to hear. It's just not you. It's just not you that is feeling the weight of the world on them. One of my very good friends from Palm Beach County talked specifically about his mental health challenging and the stress that led to anger, that led to the inability to cope with daily life. And when we talk about these things and you shine a light on it, right, it makes it clear it's not just you. And the Florida bar has done those efforts and needs to continue to do them, both raising awareness and providing these resources to help.
Very important. Well, like I said, Gary, we've covered so much ground here in a short amount of time. I want to give you an opportunity for somebody who's deciding who to vote for to want to pull the lever for Gary Lesser. If you'd like, I just want to let you kind of speak to the voters and give them your last pitch.
That sounds fair. Thanks for that. So voting is March 1, and you'll get an email a day or two before that to vote electronically. It literally takes 20 or 30 seconds. Voting turnout has been going down. 18% was our last turnout, which is a black hole. It's a crater, and it's dangerous because it affects the ability of the Florida bar to advocate for the independent judiciary and the independent legal profession in Tallahassee when there are bills that are filed every year that aren't so friendly. And number two is the issue of non-lawyer ownership of law firms. 4 states and Washington, D.C. have some version of that. And that's going to be the end of the independent legal profession as we know it. So here's my goal, a trade, if you will. If I am hopefully elected, the Florida bar will be much more proactive in our communication with messaging and content to help you with your daily practice of law. In return, I would ask that you vote and tell your friends to vote. Don't assume that they're going to vote, because now we know statistically they're not going to. And we need the Florida bar to be engaging and helping its members, and we need our Florida bar members to be engaged in voting.